Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, which is automation in the customer journey, when, where and how. And I think it's a topic that a lot of people are going to be very interested in, of how we can automate and improve customer service. I'll take you through today's agenda. Very pleased today to be joined by two experts in the field, by Tony Norman, who's the Solutions Architect Manager for Netcall, who'll be taking us through automation in the customer journey, and also Tracy Lancashire from Dacorum Borough Council. I think Dacorum is probably a Roman name, I think, isn't it, for Hemel Hempstead, that comes from the time of Henry VIII. So I won't be testing you on any other in the audience on any other Roman names, but if anyone knows what the Roman name Blestium is, there's 5 bonus points if you put that into the question box. Blestium. Then we'll be doing top tips from the audience, followed by interactive questions and answers with a poll, which is what self-service automation does your company use? So if you want to select all that apply, the answers are telephone self-service, IVR, telephone self-service with speech recognition, web self-service, mobile apps, or no self-service. Tracy, what self-service are you using in your organisation?
Well, we use a small amount of the IVR. We predominantly use speech self-service, and our web is becoming more self-serve. Okay,
so quite a range there, and we'll come back to that later on. So we're just, I think we're still waiting on a couple of people in the audience to vote. So I'd just like to put your votes in there. It's into the poll box on the right-hand side of your screen. So just, there we are, thank you for that. I'll just share the results with everyone. So that's quite interesting. The top one is telephone self-service through the IVR, followed by web self-service. Quite interesting, 28% of people are using mobile apps. Tony, that's a sort of a growing trend, isn't it, mobile apps?
Very much so. We're just about to launch our first mobile app, so a very timely question from me. Thank you very much. Yes, a great deal of interest. Obviously, a lot of people are carrying smartphones now.
And speech recognition, Tracy, is down at 13%, so quite a small number. So I think that would be quite interest on that. Just going to hide that one. And I just want to also have a look at what are some of the areas that people are considering automating. So just going to get that up. So just select all the ones that you do. Just like to get an idea of where automation could fit. So we've selected here making payments, reporting problems, tracking progress, reminders, or conducting surveys. So if you just like to select all the areas you're considering using self-service and see which ones come up. Oh gosh, quite a range coming through. Tony, any thought of what you think would be the most highest one on there?
I think probably customer surveys would be reasonably high. That's quite a popular one. Payments as well, probably.
Okay, well, let's have a look. I don't know if you're seeing the reflection of this on my glasses, but actually, yeah, the top one on the list is indeed conducting surveys, followed by making payments. So. Reminders is probably the lowest on them. Quite a large number of people for tracking progress. I know that's quite a good one if you're out and about, to be able to track progress on certainly things like parcel delivery is quite a useful one. I know a number of people do things like airline, is the flight going to arrive on time, where you're out and about. So quite a common one there. Okay, so that's great. I'm now delighted to introduce you Tony Norman, Solutions Architect Manager from Netcall. We'll just change the button across to Tony. And Tony is going to be taking us through automation in the customer journey, when and how, and to some extent, I guess, when not to use as well.
Indeed.
Tony, would you like to take us through?
Thanks, Jonty. Okay, so the first thing we need to be aware of is that today's customer journey is quite different. It used to be a very rigid zero choice experience. Now it's become very dynamic the requirements are generally for an always-on customer service. So why do we want to use automation? So there's a number of prime motivators. Lowering costs, as it says here, without losing customers, certainly maintaining and hopefully extending customer satisfaction. Offering more choice, there's a lot of talk these days about channel shift and offering choice. Extending access times, you could easily offer automation 24/7, and managing agent resources effectively using automation to take away call peaks. What's the best channel? Well, it's an interesting choice. There is no best channel. There may be a best channel for some specific tasks, but really the aim is to give as wide a choice as possible. Certainly some applications are better suited to web, some are better, some are better suited to telephone. Many can be mimicked across both, and you give your customers the choice. The when? Well, there's two main areas. The first one being to signpost callers to the appropriate agent, service or person. So there's a couple of industry terms used here, once and done, and they sometimes confusing reduce avoidable contact, but both mean the same thing. Let's get the caller straight to the person they need to speak to or the service they need in one go and not pass them around. And that can be done using push button or speech recognition. The other is to enable callers to self-serve. Now that might be a total transaction, which is the ideal. In other words, there's no mopping up left to be done. Or it could be a partial transaction. So you might, what I would term channel slide, which is to, sorry, let me see if I can get rid of that. There we go. Beg your pardon. Which is to maybe take a call to a person and then part the way through the call we might slide them across to another channel. So the person might be taking details about a payment and might pass the caller over to an automated system to take that payment. And also, as we've said before, you can use automation to extend your opening hours, which in turn will help to reduce Monday morning peaks, for example.
We're also getting some interesting on where to automate. James made a comment that they're hoping to use automation for PCI compliance, where putting credit card details in, you know, it's not about lowering costs, it's just about not storing those details if it's an IVR is handling it.
Absolutely right. We actually have gone to the extent of having our automated payment system certified for PADSS, which is the payment card industry certification. Yeah, a lot of requirement around PCI compliance with automation.
Indeed. And if anyone in the audience is, you know, would be interested to find out what your drivers are for using self-service, whether it's lower cost, if you'd like to leave a comment in the chat room or in the question box, would be good. Tony, over to you.
Clearly, there are times when we shouldn't automate, and we've probably all experienced ourselves some of those times. But there's some simple guidelines. Anything that requires some human interaction, some human emotion, giving out bad news is a typical example. Situations where people may be a little emotional. For instance, I wouldn't be a company that would automate my complaints line. That's probably not the best way to treat people. Very long or very complex interactions. The technology might be capable of handling it, but without some human encouragement along the line, people will give up after a certain amount of time in an automated system. So very lengthy form filling and that sort of thing. You probably want to think about how you do that. Collection of ad hoc information, it's very difficult to automate that over the telephone without having a mop-up job to be done by a person later on. So an example might be, I want to report some graffiti. Where is it? Well, it's on the side of Marks and Spencer's, you know, the one near the bus station. That's not going to work for speech recognition. That's going to be a recording. Somebody will have to transcribe it. That may be a good thing to do to still have that, to extend your opening hours, but you're not getting the cost benefit.
So on where not to automate, I mean, sort of one of the automations I did recently was paying car parking, which went through a very lengthy IVR application. Did get through to the far end, but it did take me about 4 or 5 minutes to navigate through it. Which, if you're waiting for a train, I think could be a bit of a challenge. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've experienced a couple. Our local car park here actually uses that. So 2 or 3 observations there. The one I used here, and it's the first registration process, is the problem. If you keep reusing the company, it's very straightforward. But the one I used here used speech recognition to collect the registration number, and that's a very difficult thing to recognize the similarities between P and T and D, those sorts of things. So it also asks for the car make and model and colour, and then checks with DVLA to try and match the two together. And of course there might be 2 blue BMWs with similar registration numbers. The second one I used a call centre, used people to collect that initial information, and then from then on it's automated. But I would say that what I now do for our car park here is use an app on my iPhone.
Right, okay, yeah.
So I don't interact by speech at all. But that's an example of appropriate use of technology and having the choice of which channel to use.
Yeah, I think the frustration is when you can't get through to the contact centre, when it doesn't get your car registration right. So, very interesting.
Okay. Implementing self-service, there's 2 main choices. The first one that we all either know and love or know and hate, which is push buttons. The idea with push button is to keep it very simple. Typically no more than 4 options. My daughters are both psychology students, and I've had a lecture about short-term memory and partly about how mine's decreasing. But typically, if you have 5 or 6 options, by the time you get to the last one, you'll have forgotten the first one.
Yeah.
So you have a narrow choice. But DTMF push button is very reliable. It's also very secure. We use it to take credit card numbers, so you're not actually saying credit card information to speech recognition. So the other one is speech recognition. The benefit there is you can have hundreds or thousands of choices as to what you might say, and you can manage things like alphanumeric input for reference numbers with letters in and so on and so forth. The other thing to really utilize is making sure that your interaction is data-driven. So put some intelligence into it. So rather than it being a simple routing option, it could, for example, take an account number or a reference number and pick up details about the caller to be passed on to save your agents having to pick that up. So what to do, how to go about it. It seems obvious. Your first step is to define the problem areas. Some people look at technology and then go looking for a problem to solve. I would suggest the first thing you do is have a look what's the most high quantity of calls that you get in your contact centre. So the most popular reason that people call, that's a good place to start. Then select the technology. So what sort of a query is this? It might simply be that people mostly call in to get directed somewhere else. You might want to think about a simple push button menu. It might be switchboard type calls where you can use speech recognition. But select the technology when you define the problem. Then decide on how you want to pay for your technology. People often decide that they want a per transaction payment model or a capital payment model, and then look to see what technology is supported by that payment model. We would certainly advocate taking the order that I describe here. And then choose how you want it deployed. Do you want it on your premises? Do you want it in the cloud? Well, how do you want to deploy it? And your provider should be able to let you decide on each step independently, and you shouldn't be forced down any one particular route. So how do I do it well? Take advice, that's one thing for certain. But a few simple things to think about is keeping the prompts at the same volume and using the same voice. If you jump about with voices and change pitch and volume, it's very distracting and takes people away from the task they're trying to perform. Be predictable. If you're going to ask a series of questions which have a set of answers, such as in a survey, keep using the same answers. Don't bob about between numbers and yeses and nos and so on. If you use the same answers, then you can stop prompting people to give those answers. They'll adapt, they'll learn, so long as you're predictable. Allow the repetition of prompts. You shouldn't just ask a question and if you get no answer go, oh, I'm sorry, we haven't been able to help you, goodbye. You need to let people hear a question repeated. Always, always, always have an escape route.
That's one of the areas I think a lot of automation get wrong is forcing people in the system or keeping them in for too long before letting them drop out. If they're asking you a third time, what have you said? You think.
We have a motto we use: if you're going to fail, fail quickly. But exactly that. We would normally ask the question, wait for a response, then give a prompt about what the escape route is, and then repeat the question. Yeah. So if you're having trouble using the system, press 0 or whatever it might be, but you should always be able to get out. Some people confuse keeping people in the system with saving money, but you're either losing customers or you're going to get a long and angry telephone call. So either way, you haven't saved if you don't let people get out.
No.
Don't try to sound like a person. Your automation system is just that. It's an automated system. Don't give it a name and make it sound all chatty. People just want to do the job. Be conservative and formal. I'm not keen on a system that addresses me as dude. You're probably not either. Just keep to the script. Use a professional to design your interfaces, your automations. You probably wouldn't design an interactive website yourselves. You probably wouldn't tinker about with it once it's been designed for you. This is a window into your organization, just the same way as your website. So a little summary, just to round off there. Satisfaction comes directly from the customer achieving their goal. You'll never talk to somebody about your automation experience that just worked. You'll only talk about the one where you didn't get to do what you want to do. If you use it correctly, you can save money and retain or even increase customer satisfaction. Choose the most appropriate technology, push button, speech recognition, mixture of the two. You should be able to use either. Power up your IVR solutions using data integration. Don't ever block callers from being able to get to talk to a person. Don't confuse the method of deployment with the cost model. You can pay per transaction but have the equipment on site. You can pay a capital sum and have it hosted. That shouldn't govern how you do things. And above everything else, it's not a fit and forget solution, automation. You need to monitor it, measure it, review it, improve it, and then go back to the start and do it all again. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Tony. We've had a question in from Lucy just about coming out of the IVR system. How do you suggest we let people out of a self-service system? Something like press 3 to speak to an agent? What's your advice on that?
If you're using push button, the common number to use is 0. Most people associate that with an operator. You also need to be able to get people out without them doing anything. So in other words, if there's a period of inactivity, you can say, you seem to be having some problems, let me put you through to someone who can help you.
Yeah.
So you effectively time them out without doing anything. So there's a couple of ways there, but 0 is generally the the
0. I certainly like the timeout. Where it's speech recognition, please, you put your request in. Sorry, I didn't get that. You put it in a second time. if the system doesn't recognise them, I say we're just going to put you through to someone who can help. Would be an appropriate one for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Would be quite good. Okay, wonderful. Well, we're now going to. We've got a few bits in from the audience as well on the chat room. Who've been talking through their drivers for self-service. Jennifer has said reducing costs, avoidable contact, and reducing calls is a driver. Sam has said also PCI is a driver. Glenn has said that their driver overall is lowering cost and efficiencies. And Diane has said streamlining the route into technical support. The first point to the knowledge base, and then afterwards to submit a support request, which is then automatically routed to a technical engineer with the appropriate skills to hopefully answer the question. So it's part of the direction process. So you know, lower call peaks. I suppose that's, you know, you try and answer people where you can. If you can't, then use some automation to help to drive that through. Right. What I'd like to now do is I'd like to pull up another poll and I'd like to look at what problems you face with introducing more self-service into your organisation. So the answers are senior management nervousness, getting it through IT, customer demographics, for instance, old people or dealing with accents or like, budget constraints, or technological concerns. And I guess, Tracy, when we get onto your, you'll be talking through about some of the concerns you have with getting that into the system. So, so what was probably your biggest one off this list, Tracy?
I think what we continually face now, being in local government, is budget constraints.
Yep.
But historically, at Dacorum, technology is introduced a bit at a time. So often when we want to do something new, it might not be compatible with what we've got. So that's often a problem. Okay,
so let's have a look at what the audience have said. And by far the largest one through is actually, well, budget constraints comes in number 2 for everyone. But this is a bit of a sad one. Getting it through the IT department, 31% of the audience is their biggest problem. Customer demographics, dealing with old people or accents. Technological concerns, quite low. Only about 14% of people seem to be the overwhelming thing is that the technology don't feel is good enough. And I was surprised, only 4% of senior management nervousness. So I guess senior managers don't tend to be nervous people at the best of times, but they can be a little bit inconsistent, I would say in my experiences. So what I'd like now to do is I'd just like to hide that poll. I'd just like to drill down in a little bit more detail on this because it's quite interesting to find where the holdback is. So in the audience, what I'd like to do is ask you the question, what is your biggest single problem you find with introducing more self-service into your company? If you'd like to put your answers either into the chat room or onto the question box, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. So in the audience, if you could type in, what is your biggest single problem with introducing more self-service? So I'll just give you a little time to type your answers in. So we're getting some answers coming through already. And so Carl said it's resources and budget. Kevin says it's budget. Matthew is worried about customer take-up. Jennifer says people want to speak more to a person than an automated voice, e.g. for payment. What they want is trust. So trust is certainly an issue of that. Getting a constant approach to the processes to be automated. Certainly if you've got different processes, that's hard to automate. Getting some smiles here from Tracy. I guess you've been through that. Linking the IVR technology to our in-house system, says Andrew. Resources, says Elizabeth. Budget and IT, says Debaraj. Frank says understanding customer preferences and offer them the channel of choice to self-serve. So I guess it's different channels for different people. Budget technical information is Babak. IT systems is Raywan. Ian says it takes the time it takes. So I don't know if that's to get it through or to actually do it. Layla says having one data set to refer to make self-service work. Technical limits, says Michael, and having one customer database, says Layla. So Tony, that's quite a lot of people actually finding the problem is that it's not just one process that's being automated here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting to hear how many people are saying that it's the challenge of integrating to various data sources. It is something we do quite a lot of. I work quite a lot with local authorities, which can be fairly siloed. So in other words, revenues and benefits will have their own system and their own customer view. Yeah. And housing may have a completely different view but of the same person, and they're frequently completely separate systems. So you do have to be able to pull data from multiple sources.
Yeah, so it's very interesting there. Sam said getting the IT resource to complete all automation. So I guess IT is a key factor in here. Managing customer expectations. I think Tracy, you're going to be talking on that in a short while. The biggest problem is probably technical. Our CRM is old and difficult to implement new technologies onto it. It was only a few years ago CRM was the problem. There was the technology that was going to solve all those problems. Yeah. It's quite interesting hearing recently Siebel described as a legacy system. It was only 8 years ago. It's the best thing since sliced bread. Mara says getting budget and ICT support. Samantha also customer expectations and worries about brand image. Deborah said integration with the existing systems. Dave said deciding on the most appropriate technology. So whether to go mobile app, speech recognition, or web.
Well, obviously your ideal there would be to go all three if you can.
Yeah.
And offer the choice.
Yeah, I suppose it's all to do with the channel that people are interested in. So I think some of those things will lead very nicely, Tracy, into your presentation. Tracy Lecture works with Dacorum Borough Council, which, as I understand, covers the areas of Hemel Hempstead and outlying communities.
That's right.
So we'll just get your presentation up onto the screen, and then take us through some of the experience. Do you want to press there it is. We've got it there. Fabulous.
Okay, Tracy. Thank you. Just wanted to share with you how Dacorum went about implementing Netcall as a product. So when we use it, where we use it, and how we use it. So it's our first call for our customers. We use it for our switchboard internally and externally, and also automated agents using speech recognition. So our journey started quite a while ago now, in 2004 with Netcall, and we implemented a virtual operator which consisted of a speed dial number, so a short dial number of staff to call colleagues within the organisation to eliminate the habit of ringing our switchboard and asking to be put through to a colleague that's perhaps in the next room. So we implemented that, very quickly expanded that to include external contractors, so colleagues could then ring perhaps their regular contractors using the same system. We also decided at the time for us to get members buy-in, so our counsellors, we wanted them to buy into the product. We gave them their unique direct dial number, which for them was quite special, and they used this number then to dial into if they were perhaps out and about, and they could ask for a member of staff, so without having to remember DDI numbers or go through via our switchboard. And as you will see, in local government we moved very quickly, and in 2009 we decided to implement virtual agents. So we implemented virtual agents, which allows us to do some direct reporting for things like missed bins, so high volume interactions and job application requests. And more recently, or the last thing we launched was in January 2011, we launched our operator services, which was our one number for residents to call us. So our original objectives were to implement virtual agents to provide automation to deal with all switchboard calls. We wanted to introduce one number for customers, so easy number to remember rather than the historical direct dial numbers for depending on whether you wanted to speak to housing or council tax. We wanted to integrate with the call centre to manage any failure. It also helped with training of our staff. Operator services, we wanted to ensure we went live by an agreed date. Ultimately, there was also a reduction of one full-time equivalent member of staff. And with the automated switchboard, it provided a 24/7 service for our customers. At the time, we were experiencing long call waits, so again, the automation of some of our services would allow us to reduce that down, and also we wanted to improve our customer satisfaction. We have a quarterly newsletter at Dacorum, and so we use this opportunity to publish our new launch of our one number. We didn't go for a big bang approach. We kept it quite low key and simple. We weren't changing our main number, it was remaining the same. So as far as customers was concerned, there was no change. They could ring the switchboard, and they were then advised that at that time they would reach the speech system. And again, it would reduce down the many DDI numbers that we expected all our customers to remember about all the services that we provide. So the results, did we achieve what we wanted to achieve? We did reduce the number of operators down. We didn't need to think about staff covering our switchboard for annual leave, sickness. We had the automation that would do that 24/7. Any failed calls through our operator services would go direct through to the contact centre, and we actually chose for that to be a priority call. We didn't want perhaps the caller then queuing, waiting for their call to be answered. We received very few official complaints with regards to the system, approximately only 10, and as I say, it's one single number for our customers to call for ease for them. So often I'm asked, how do we handle calls that are not routed? So perhaps if somebody rings and asks for something quite random or quite bizarre or something that we haven't thought of, where do they go? They default into our call centre, they become a priority call, and the agent will be presented with a call, and they'll know it's an operator call, so they know actually this customer's either suffered difficulty in getting what they want, or perhaps not been able to self-serve through the speech.
So how does that process work? You had the question earlier about how people drop out. How many times do you ask them the question?
You can choose. So when we implemented it, we chose 2.
Yep.
So they're asked when they call up, say the name of the service or department or person you wish to speak to. If it's not recognised, it will ask again, or at that point it says, or say operator.
Right, okay, yeah.
And so they're given a choice, and if they still unable to get through and it doesn't recognise it at that point, it then says, I'm transferring you to the operator.
Right, okay, yeah.
And so they drop out into the call centre at that point.
Right, okay.
If they go through to the contact centre, as I say, they become a priority call, and hopefully we can deal with their inquiry or point them in the right direction. We also chose at the time of implementing the operator services to direct route calls to organisations that perhaps customers associated with local government but actually weren't sure of where the borough and county boundaries lie. So an example of that would be somebody ring up about a pothole. It's dealt with at county level, it's not dealt with by ourselves, but rather than giving a message that they needed to ring another number, we actually just transfer them, so we make the outbound call, and that was a decision that members or councillors wanted to do. So there's a whole list of other services that perhaps aren't ours, but we just transfer the customer for that seamless transaction for them. And out of hours, we provide various options for customers when we're closed. They can still come through and ask for a person, because some people are maybe working later than perhaps the office is advertised as being open, or they are given various messages where they can self-serve through different routes to do that. What did we learn along the way? Many things. You need to be clear about what you want from automation, and as Tony said earlier, it may not be the right answer for you. You need to decide, and you need to explore what options are available. It gives you a great opportunity at that time to explore your existing processes. It allows you to perhaps think about, why do we ask these 10 questions of the customer in this order? Because the system asks us to process them that way. And the telephone, particularly with our missed bins, we found that actually the way we asked the questions on the web, or the way we asked them over the phone, wasn't right for the telephone. So we actually turned that around, and that was really through the sort of support of Netcall giving us advice on that. So just because you always process in that order doesn't necessarily mean it will work that way on the phone. Quite key is ensure that you have the staff buy-in. We set up workshops with colleagues from around the council, because really this impacts on them. This is about their customers, and as much as we think in customer services, we know everything, we don't, and we need their input. And it was about also thinking about their literature and planning for their annual billing, that the right phone numbers and the right phrases were on there for customers to say. That's crucial. That is crucial to make sure that they buy into it. Interaction between internal and external systems. In local government, we have many systems. As Tony said, we have a system for every service. All of them are very different, and you need to have people that understand how the technology works in both areas, and what may seem to be a problem in one area actually may lie further down the line. So really understanding your product and making sure you've got the experts on hand to assist you with that.
So how do you update the system with new people joining as well?
Well, that leads nicely on to my who are you? You've seen my slide. We very quickly after go live found out that our operator services, so our internal directory, was populated through our payroll system.
Right.
Our payroll system stores people's true name and details. How many people in the organisation don't use their official name? Quite a few, we found out the hard way. So think about where you're getting your data from, because the system will only be as good as the data you put in it. So as much as people might have asked for Tracy Lancashire, if actually my real name is Mary, it's never going to find me. So it's very important to make sure that it might seem great that this payroll system has everybody that works here, so how can it be wrong? Actually, if people are known by another name, then you need to ask them to let you know.
Do you have instances of like two Mark Smiths or?
Yes. If that occasion happens, well, when you put the data in, the system will recognise the department they work in. So it will say, would you like Mark Smith in council tax, or would you like Mark Smith in housing, for example?
Right, okay.
So it will give the customer the option. We haven't yet come across somebody of the same name in the same department, so I'm not quite sure. I'd be ringing Netcall for that help. So we haven't had that problem.
That'll actually use other fields. It'll look for whichever field, which may be where they work or whatever, but it'll pick whichever one is different. So we do a lot of work in the NHS, and because you have vast numbers of doctors frequently with the same name, you may have to ask, is it this hospital or this hospital? Oh, it's this hospital. Okay, now is it this department or this department? And it will do that. It will go through and do what a person would do. Let me find the bits that separate them out.
I presume you get people who phone in and say, can I speak to Martin, please?
I mean, the administration tool Netcall allows us to listen.
Yeah.
That can cause quite amusement sometimes, people having conversations while talking or expecting to have a conversation with the system. So that's quite funny. But no, I think those could just drop into the operator, so not too bad. We do get people that ask for things. I'll come on to that in a little while, actually. Everyone's waiting now for what that's going to be. Okay, so where are we now? Over 200,000 calls were received in the last 12 months. We have over 350 staff names within our system. Our target is to answer 70% of calls within 20 seconds. Currently, through Netcall, that's 100%. and 95% of these are recognised and handled automatically. Well, they were for last month anyway. The system allows us to put variations on what people might ask for. So in terms of performance, it will recognise many things. So if you think of the push button options, you're limited to what you can give people as an option, and what you may refer to something as. Somebody may refer something else. So people, believe it or not, do ask us, instead of for refuse or bins or waste or rubbish, they say refuge. So we've actually programmed that into the system. So rather than saying it and not recognising it, because it's commonly said, we just put that in. So it will say transferring you to waste, now that they've put that in. So that's quite nice, that it allows you to put unlimited amounts of phrases and words for departments, because obviously departments in local authority are known to those that work there, but not always known to those out of the organisation.
So how long do you have to spend, every week or every month or every year sort of putting these in, or is it sort of you do it once and that's more an asset?
The initial implementation, you need to make sure you spend time adding in, and that's why the buy-in from the departments, because they'll know what people ask for, they'll know the different terminology. So there's a whole list that is put in, and then once you go live, we had sort of 2 weeks worth of feedback from Netcall saying, well, actually 20 people last week asked for refuge, you might want to put this in, and so that will increase your take-up of the system. So that's how we overcome that. But now, very rarely have to go in
and how accurate is the technology? I mean, you've talked about 95% of calls recognised and handled automatically, so that sounds like it's sort of 95% accurate.
It is, yeah. You will always get people that, it will never be 100%. People will ring us for the most bizarre things, because we're a local authority and we know everything. So they will ring and ask for the most random things which we are never going to think of and never put in. So 95% is pretty good.
Do you find people having a speech recognition voice? Certainly in the office, people know that when I say yes and no, that they know I'm speaking to a speech recognition system. Is it the same when a bit more formal, if you're listening to the calls coming through?
Some of them are. Some of them do think they're having a conversation with somebody. So that's quite amusing.
Could that be put back to that last nice person I spoke to?
Yeah. And finally, really, we've recently trialled QBuster from Netcall, which is a facility which allows customers, if there's high volumes of calls, to leave details and they'll receive a call back, and that call presents itself in our phone system. So we're sort of evaluating that at the moment. So watch this space.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Trace. We have a question in from Robbie, who says, how long after launch did you continue to optimize the disambiguation feature? I guess, I don't know what the disambiguation feature is. And when did you get an acceptable level of calls being routed first time?
When we went live, Netcall worked with us until we reached the acceptable level of successful calls, which I think was about 75–80%. So until we reached that, they transcribed the calls to find where we needed to add new departments in, change things, and so on. So very supportive to ensure we got to that point.
And how long was that? That was sort of weeks?
Oh, yeah, 2–3 weeks.
Oh, right. And then that was up to sort of those sorts of levels we were talking about.
Yeah.
That's very good. Interesting. And on the chat room, Matt has said, I'm using QBuster and it's excellent. I've also tied QBuster into our automated survey, so we speak to customers straight away if they record a negative experience on the survey. I'm not quite sure how that would work.
So what QBuster will do is it will place a call into the contact centre on someone's behalf. So what they'll do is when the survey gets a negative result, it will trigger a call for QBuster, which will place a call into the ACD queue. When the agent gets the call, it will then call the originator of the survey and put them straight together. So when the original person being surveyed answers the call, the first thing they hear is a person. So they feel that they've been personally called back. But really the call has been queued into the contact centre.
Oh, that's clever. So that's if you score, on a Net Promoter Score, score at a 2 or something, Now, just automatically says, oh, right, you need to get someone to speak to them, and just dials the system for them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not a bad way of
look out when you score negatively.
Sorry.
When you make it a call.
I don't think I've ever had a call like that. But it's, some of the surveys coming out, you do wonder if anyone ever reads them. So thank you very much for that, Tracy. We've got a number of tips. In fact, we're going to go across to our top tips part of the webinar now. So let's just get the tips up on the screen. So it's your turn to 4 top tips. If you want to put in a top tip, I think the chances of winning a bottle of champagne currently about 7 or 8. So I think chances of winning the champagne is much better than the chance of winning the scratch card or the national lottery. So if you want to pop your tips in, we'll go through those now. So the first tip is sent in by Stuart 5 on the chat room. Personalise automation by user. Some people want to self-serve and speak to another human being as a last resort only. Others will just try to beat a route through any self-service channel. So that's quite interesting psychology there. That some would prefer the computer and some don't trust it.
I think it depends on what you're transacting, doesn't it?
Yeah. I know certainly when insurance quotes came in, a lot of people preferred to be online to the system because they felt they were getting the price out of the system, not what the insurance agent was doing to try and get a bit of extra commission. Not any.
So one of our systems where people prefer to use the automation, we do a lot of work providing results from sexually transmitted diseases clinics.
Ah.
And people would generally rather get that from a system than a person.
I can certainly imagine that being the case. James said, don't make automation the only option. Many customers still prefer to avoid it or can't use it, and other options are important. Certainly, we've discussed that already. I think it's certainly quite a key one. I think it's another James. Top tip suggestion, be the customer. Phone up and go through the IVR. Was it easy? Was it bearable? If not, instigate improvements. Yeah, it's certainly a good tip. I think one of the problems is that I've got a slight underlying West Country accent, and voice recognition just doesn't like me. Whereas if you've got a sort of a nice voice recognition voice, you could test it and think everything's fine, and then you find that half of Glasgow can't get through the system later. I've got nothing against people in Glasgow.
And we get staff to test it, and obviously they've got varying accents. So
yeah. So do you find the accents vary dramatically?
Not particularly within Dacorum. We don't really struggle.
Oh, the accuracy.
No.
Oh, good. Franca said, SMS is a channel that is more and more prevalent for automation. For example, payments with card details ready on file, surveys, reminders, and tracking are all examples. So Frank's selling an SMS solution there, but certainly that's another way of getting some limited automation, though I've seen some SMS interactions where it sort of pings backward and forward and gets then can get rather long-winded and convoluted. Fine if you're on the train and haven't got anything else to do, but not so great if you're trying to drive up the M4. Sam has said, use the telephone number the customer is calling on to identify customer details, such as products ordered, to provide a customized IVR. I love the idea of a customized IVR there. Is that something you do much of?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said earlier, making your IVR intelligent is key. And as soon as you can identify your customer, then that's exactly right. You can provide a customized journey, which might be straight to accounts payable if you're behind on a payment, for example, and you're just trying to buy something else. But yes, certainly. And it's also nice to just to be able to put that detail up in front of a call center agent, so they can say, yes, Mr. Pearce, how can I help you today? Just even doing that, it helps the experience.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like the idea of a personalised IVR. I think that could be quite good, because that would then cut down on the number of menu choices you need to
absolutely
to offer to people.
And you could offer their most used options first.
Yeah.
So you can learn to how they like to work.
Certainly there's one internet service company that just drives me mad every time I call them. It's, do you want sales or service? And then do you have a normal server or do you have a dedicated server? And it's all tied in from the same telephone number, so it would be just nice to go straight through. So Robbie says, build IVR into your mobile apps to allow the customer to dial direct to the department they are looking for, reduces the perceived navigation time through IVR and costs the business. If, for instance, an 0800 or an 08545 number is used. Certainly, one of the things you see in a lot of organisations is the one number strategy. Right, we're going to have a single number and we're going to then route that into the IVR because it's got that single number, rather than actually if you're sending a bill out, it's not a bad thing to have a separate telephone number on that for your billing department, saying if you've got a question about your bill, phone this number, otherwise use the one number. I guess from a purist that would be a two-number strategy, but that potentially avoids the IVR completely. Do you do that for your billing department of putting, not what you call it, but what do you call it?
Well, council tax bills will have the one number purely because the call centre deals with those inquiries, so they don't then go anywhere else.
Right. Okay. So Carla said, provide a variety of channels and allow your customer to decide which is the right one for them. This may also change depending on the reason for the contact. One size does not fit all. So Tracy, you've used web self-service, you've used telephone routing and so on. Have you considered things like mobile apps?
It is something the council's looking at, but as I demonstrated how quick local government moves, it may be a little while before we're there.
Yeah, certainly the most interesting mobile app I've seen, I don't know if you've seen the one, was one from, I can't remember which council it was, for reporting potholes, where it was a little mobile app you can run. If you found a pothole in the road, you could take a photo of it, and then it would send the photo and your GPS coordinates, if you have the right sort of mobile phone, straight off to the highways department, so they could actually work out where it was. And I thought that was a
quite common,
cool thing. And then you think, oh, some people just downloading the app and just, ooh, I found another pothole. And if you ever drive through the M40 up where I live, there's a whole section of them. It's almost like a country lane. So I think that app would be very good indeed. Tip from Diane: provide a customised IVR usage guide card, the size of the job card, which can be placed by a customer's telephone. In some ways, I quite like that as an example, but I've got some worries on that one. Whether if you need to send someone a how-to card, is the IVR designed properly?
I would agree with you there, absolutely. Yeah, if you need instructions on how to use it, you are doing something wrong. That's like sending some instructions through the post on how to use a website. It doesn't feel right.
No, so yeah, I think probably would want to have a bit of a tune of your IVR on that one, Diane. But certainly like the idea. Right, time for some questions from our audience. We've got Tony Norman from Netcall and Tracy Lecture from Dacorum, Borough Council. Andrew says, how do you measure the customer journey through the IVR to determine if your IVR structure is meeting the needs of the customer, i.e. if you're offering clear options with good self-service?
Well, it comes really to the final point in my presentation, the piece about measuring. So you certainly need to be able to put trigger points in your IVR that say that, okay, the customer's got to this point, and now he's stopped.
Yeah.
So if you can identify where customers drop out of an IVR, then that will take you directly to the cause of your problem.
Yeah. So
success is the measure, really.
There's certainly two things I've seen on this that could help. One is listening to the calls as they go through the IVR. It's something that a lot of people don't do, and you hear all sorts of. I remember one where someone phoned up and they were really getting quite upset. They said there's and they used a swear word. There's 5 swear word options on this system, and not one swear word option is suitable. It was getting really wound up on this. Connected through to the agent, as good as gold. You'd have no idea there was dissatisfaction there. And I went to a seminar recently where one well-known high street brand found they had an 18% call abandon rate in their IVR, but had no idea of it because they only measured, as in most call centres do, the abandon rate from the moment the call actually hit the actual queue into customer service. So that's another one. If you not always easy to get that number, but you can certainly compare the number of calls offered on your reports from your telco with the number of calls offered on your reports into the contact centre, would give you hopefully some degree of that.
Sure. The IVR itself should have that reporting built in there, certainly.
Yeah, indeed. Glenn said, what information does the virtual agent give to the customer inquiring about a missed bin?
It takes the details from the customer through speech and it advises them of when it will be collected if it's deemed to be a genuine missed bin.
Ah, I phoned the council 2 weeks ago and said, you haven't picked up my bins. And they looked up on the system and said, you've got the wrong week. It's not. Which I'd actually got it off my calendar and I'd filled in the whole year with the wrong week on it. So.
And just on that missed bin, actually, what I had missed from the presentation was that the speech for the reporting for the missed bins goes direct into our back office system. So there's no double keying, no human intervention. It just gets reported as a report.
Yeah. So Deborah said, I'm interested in how people automate the service after the initial inquiry. How do you keep people updated on progress? I guess this is for a follow-up calls or something to for instance.
Okay, so this is really about being able to identify the caller. If it's somebody reporting a fault or something like that, typically the easiest way is with a reference number. But it comes down to the integration with your systems. It keeps coming back to that, adding some intelligence. So it might be, what's the current status of my planning application? Are the library books I ordered in yet? When's my parcel coming? Those are all very common uses for an IVR system. And because they're frequently, often repeated calls by the same person for the same reason, it's great to automate those. It's real cost saving.
Yeah, so it's really about identifying the customer to do that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm afraid that's all that we've got time for today.